I'll take a good human any day of the week over a billionaire that owns 50 billion companies.
Yeah, so what if good people are not popular? If the majority are all greedy psychopaths, you can't expect me to be a very popular person as your new government the last 12 years. Why aren't Americans good people? That's the real question. Well, they never upheld the right to life from the Declaration of Independence for 250 years. So, to be a good person, you have to say that killing is wrong, even when the government does it, which has never been done before. The public, the people, we the people, have never put the government in check when they do things wrong. And they've been doing things wrong for decades and decades, so long that you think bad is normal. The truth is, America was supposed to be the land of the free, not the most incarcerated. The only reason it's the most incarcerated nation in the world is because you, as Americans, never understood the Eighth Amendment. Putting people in a jail cell for any reason was just your torture fetish. Now, what if I tell you that America actually ended 12 years ago in Cascadia? You're going to have denial, the first stage of grief. Nuh-uh, that's not what they told me on the news. Well, the news and all of D.C. was taken out by a foreign power when JFK got shot. So Israel took over Washington, D.C. And you didn't notice since 1963 as Americans. Going to Vietnam right after that was something Israel would do to take over the world, using Americans as war fodder. So all these wars after JFK got shot was something Israel wanted to do, to use America to take over the world. Does Israel know that killing is wrong? Well, your tax dollars go towards a genocide today. The boomers have billions and billions of dollars towards World War III. They're highly invested in that. I don't have a dime for world peace, though, as your new necratic government. The leading sociologists will tell you nationalism itself is irrational tribalism, that it's mental illness, just like religion. It's divide and conquer strategy. Hey, we'll keep the human race divided with different colored flags and get them to fight over who owns the moon, right? This is how they keep you all under control. If you start a new country like I did in the Pacific Northwest, what does the deep state do? Well, they start talking about how Washington State is going to split in two and become Liberty State, even though I lead the entire Pacific Northwest. So I became the governor of Liberty State simultaneously when I was president of Cascadia. So if they even cover their own PSYOP, hey, you're going to have to talk to the governor of Liberty State, who's actually the president of the West Coast, right? So this is why they suffocate that state. Hey, you're not going to hear about Liberty State. If I'm governor of Jefferson, you are not going to hear about the state of Jefferson. If Israel controls D.C., because I lead every military in a noocracy, because the public, the majority, actually wants the smartest to be their leader, not the most popular candidate. So why am I your first noocracy representative? Well, Americans never understood their founding document. I knew how dumb you were. I volunteered. And I've been teaching you the right to life from the Declaration of Independence to no avail for 2 decades. You cannot tell an American that their country ended. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. You can't teach an American the right to life from the Declaration of Independence because, look, the cops are just going to keep blowing people away when they're not supposed to. Other nations have abolished lethal force Why not the United States? Right? So abortion and execution were never supposed to exist in the United States because you have an unalienable right to life, just like lethal force by police. The government doesn't actually get to justify why it gets to end your life. When representing the government with the cops, they're not actually supposed to use lethal force. Oops. You have a right to life. It must be understood and upheld by the government. Okay? So this allows the smart guy, yours truly, to alter or abolish the U.S. government without a drop of blood, which I did. Today it's a one-nation continent here in Amaxa. How long is the public going to have avoidant personality disorder? How long is the public going to be too chicken to talk to the smart guy? On every TikTok live, what happens? You have a moderator narcissist, a Machiavellian power monger, acting as a mini government, acting as their own god. They get to pick and choose who gets to be on the panel. Well, you've all been acclimated to violating free speech and the First Amendment on TikTok, right? So that's just a microcosm of what happens. Like the Stanford prison experiment, everyone tends to abuse their power once they get in a position of power. So you're going to want to have the leading sociologist lead every military for the first time in history after NATO. Because if you allow a psychopath to lead, what happens? Well, they start toppling other nations like Netanyahu and Donald Trump. Right? They start bombing places, the 7 nations that General Wesley Clark talked about. So what I'm telling you is I fired Trump and Hegseth for 2381 treason as the acting 5-star dad. Right? They were aiding the enemy. So you're not supposed to aid Israel after JFK, after they attacked the USS Liberty, after they colluded on 9/11 with the U.S. government and told you a lie, right? Why was Dick Cheney in the PIAC too early, right? Why did you have the dancing Israelis and the E-team light up the windows in advance where they were going to blow up the windows on the World Trade Center, right? It's an inside job. If Americans were just told the truth about 9/11, they would no longer trust DC ever again, and they would no longer trust Israel ever again. Okay? So why not just tell the truth about 9/11? Hey, that's your golden ticket out of this mess, right? So you have a lot of catching up to do. The boomers are 2 nations behind the historical timeline. Jim Brewer is right. You know, just because somebody is rich doesn't mean they're necessarily a good person. You know, psychopaths tend to be rich, as a generous person would never become rich because they're generous, right? So who do you want to have as a leader? A greedy person, a wealth narcissist, or somebody who's actually a humanitarian, who's benevolent, like Jim is talking about? Well, hey, I banned rent on the entire continent. You know, we don't need to have these concentration camps. Everybody is actually welcome here now that it's a one-nation continent here in Amaxa, right? Your xenophobia and your territorialism is always going to be on the wrong side of history, like Ronald Reagan talking about the Berlin Wall. Did Donald Trump hear Reagan's message about the Berlin Wall? Anytime you try to divide humanity with a wall like this, you're always going to be on the wrong side of history. So we should have been more welcoming. We should have been planting grafted super trees instead of having a wall, right? That just garners animosity. So, like Russia and Ukraine, they're having a territorial dispute. I'm teaching you Chief Seattle philosophy. He was trying to say, hey, silly white man, you don't own the land here. We share the land. Can anyone teach the boomers how to share?